The train carved through the midnight fog like a blade meant to split the world open. Its windows glowed dull and tired, flickering as though the train itself were breathing. Passengers huddled in their seats, some asleep, some pretending to be, but everyone carried the same look, fear disguised as exhaustion. All except Lara Gray. She sat alone near the end of carriage 3, coat draped over her legs, fingers tapping a slow rhythm on her knee. Her knuckles were bruised purple, the kind of bruises earned from hitting something hard and not stopping soon enough. Her eyes didn't wander nervously like everyone else's. They stayed fixed on the corridor, watching, waiting, as if she knew what was coming. Or who? Detective Adrian Black had boarded as a shadow, a man with no badge, no protocol, only a mission stamped into his mind: find the source of the disappearances linked to this cursed route. 9 missing persons. No bodies. No patterns. Only one constant: they had all been last seen on this train before it reached its final tunnel. A tunnel the railway maps didn't show. A tunnel no one admitted existed. At 1:12 a.m., the train shuddered. Not violently, just enough to pull Adrian's eyes up from the passenger manifest. A soft thump followed. Then silence. Too much silence. The kind that presses against the eardrums as if swallowing sound itself. Passenger number 47, seated directly behind Adrian, was gone. The seat was still warm. A half-finished coffee trembled faintly in its cup holder as though touched by invisible fingers. No scream. No footsteps. No sign of struggle. Just a thin smear of dark blood streaked across the window, shaped like a hand dragged downward, except the streak began in the middle of the glass, far above where a human hand should have reached without standing. Adrian crouched, inspecting the floor. Not a drop. Nothing spilled, nothing knocked over. The disappearance was clean, too clean. Like the air had swallowed the man whole. A faint scent lingered. Burnt metal and something else, something acidic, like old machinery left to rot underground. Lara spoke before he asked. "Don't look for him," she said without turning her head. Her voice carried no tremor, no fear, only certainty. "He's not in this carriage anymore." Adrian stepped closer. "You saw something?" "I always see something," she murmured. "This train doesn't like strangers. But it hates the chosen ones more." He studied her face. The calm pulse at her neck. The controlled breathing. Too steady for someone witnessing a vanishing that defied every law of the living world. "What do you know about passenger 47? Adrian asked. She finally met his eyes. Her gaze was sharp enough to cut. "I know he was the wrong one. The train takes mistakes first. It saves the special one for last." "And who's that?" he asked. Lara's lips curled into the faintest, saddest smile. "You," she whispered. Outside, the rails groaned, a long, low cry like distant metal begging for mercy. The train sped up, unprompted, as if it had found what it had been hunting. The blackout didn't hit like a sudden strike, it flowed in slowly, creeping through the train one carriage at a time. First the overheads flickered, then dimmed, and then everything collapsed into a suffocating red glow as the emergency lights snapped to life. The air shifted. It felt heavier, electrified, as if the entire train had inhaled deeply and was holding its breath. Detective Adrian Black's instincts ignited instantly. Blackouts on moving trains were never accidents, not ones timed this perfectly. He moved through the narrow aisle with silent steps, scanning faces, searching for the panic he expected. But the passengers didn't scream. They froze, like prey animals sensing the predator before seeing it. And then he saw her. Lara Gray stood at the far end of the carriage, half-shrouded in the crimson emergency light. Her silhouette looked carved out of shadow, still and deliberate. In her hand glinted a blade, small, sharp, and slick. Adrian's breath caught, not from fear, but from the chill of realization. There was blood on the switchblade. He approached slowly. Lara didn't run. Didn't lift the weapon. She simply watched him, her eyes glowing faintly under the emergency lights, their color unreadable in the darkness. She looked almost serene. He reached her, stopping just close enough to smell the metallic tang of blood. "Whose is it?" he asked. Lara tilted her head slightly, like she was studying him. "Not mine," she whispered. Her voice sounded softer in the blackout, intimate. Too intimate for a setting where someone had just bled. Adrian's hand subtly moved toward the holster under his jacket, a reflex more than a threat. Lara noticed, of course she did, and she smiled like someone who already knew how this would end. She stepped closer, ignoring the detective's subtle defenses, and took his free hand gently. Her fingers were cool. Too cool. She guided his palm to her chest, placing it over her heartbeat. It was steady. Strong. Not a single tremor. "You feel that?" she asked quietly. "You're the only one here who still believes this is an investigation. The others? They've already surrendered. But you're still fighting. And that's why it wants you." "What wants me?" he asked, though a part of him already feared the answer. "The train," she breathed, her lips dangerously close. "It's been circling for decades, searching for the right one. Do you think the disappearances were random?" "No, Adrian. It's choosing. Testing. Feeding until it finds the soul that fits." Her hand slipped from his, trailing down his wrist in a way that felt both tender and threatening. "You're special," she said, voice dropping to a whisper that crawled into his bones. "And this train loves special things." A shudder rippled through the carriage, metal strained, a groan rolled overhead, and something heavy dragged across the roof of the train. Passengers whimpered in the dark. Adrian's heartbeat finally accelerated. Lara's smile widened. "Now do you understand?" she whispered. "You were never here to solve a case. You were brought here so the hell train could claim what it wants most." She leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. "You." Under Car 9, the world shifted into something colder, older, and unquestionably wrong. Adrian hadn't planned on crawling beneath a moving train in the middle of the night, but the moment Lara told him, "That's where the truth sleeps," he didn't hesitate. The metal grated above him, each vibration traveling through his bones like the footsteps of something massive and unseen walking across his spine. Lara moved ahead of him effortlessly, as though she had been under this carriage 100 times before. The compartment they reached wasn't listed on any blueprint. It was a hidden chamber welded into the underbelly of the train, sealed by a rusted hatch with markings no railway engineer would have dared paint. The symbols were jagged, burnt into the metal, glowing faintly as if remembering the hand that carved them. Adrian scraped his glove over one of the carvings and jerked his hand back immediately. The steel was warm. Not from friction. Not from the train. Warm like living skin. Lara watched him quietly. "You weren't supposed to find this alone," she said. "But you're faster than I expected." He shot her a look. "Start talking." She didn't. Instead, she knelt beside the sigil in the center of the floor, an intricate circle made of razor-thin cuts in the metal, humming with some unseen energy. Chains lay around it, broken, burnt at the ends, as though something incredibly strong had snapped them in one clean motion. The smell was sharper here, metallic and decayed, like a slaughterhouse mixed with engine oil. Adrian scanned the chamber with the cold precision of a detective, but the crime scene made no logical sense. No victims. No tools. No biological traces except the burn-like residue scattered across the walls. Yet every inch screamed of violence. Ritual. Possession. And Lara finally spoke. "It wasn't passenger 47, she said softly. "He was never the target." She touched the chain lightly, it hissed under her fingers. "This train doesn't take people. It takes souls. And it's been waiting. Adrian stared at her, feeling the pieces shift into place in the worst possible arrangement. Waiting for what? For you, she whispered. The words hit him harder than the cold air. He stepped back instinctively, but the space felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls were closing in around him. Lara rose to her feet, her expression unreadable, part sorrow, part hunger. You think you came here for a case, she said. But this wasn't a mission. It was a delivery. A scrape echoed above them, metal claws dragging across the roof of the train, slow, deliberate, tracking their position. The chains on the floor rattled despite the absence of wind. The sigil pulsed like a heartbeat. Lara, he said, voice low, controlled. What did you do? She stepped forward, her hand brushing his cheek with a tenderness that felt like a betrayal. I wasn't running from the hell train, she said. I was guiding you to it. Because it doesn't want fear. It doesn't want sinners or victims. Her eyes softened, almost painfully. It wants someone pure enough to break. A shadow moved behind her, long and distorted, though there was no light to cast it. Adrian's breath slowed as reality locked into place. The disappearances. The perfect timing. The unnatural calm of the passengers. Lara's impossible intuition. She wasn't a companion. She was the lure. The train's heartbeat thundered through the chamber, rattling the chains. And whispering through the steel came a voice, not human, not earthly, but hungry. Adrian steadied himself. Lara smiled sadly. The hell train had found him.